Well, let me start by just letting you know our class is going to have a pretty strong focus for the next 8 weeks, and we'll start that in week one. And you can see it in the title here, Climate Denial, the Long Campaign of Misinformation. And we'll be following this river of deception, if you will. And we'll start in the 1950s, but we'll also start in the 1950s in chapter one, that is, next week, with how the tobacco industry denied their products were harmful so they could keep making profit. And from the tobacco industry, then we'll move into the fossil fuel industry. And by the end of the semester, this whole river will make sense to you. But right now, we're going to look pretty much at, in the movie, the first week, and in the readings we use the first week, we'll look at how the tobacco and fossil fuel industry use the same tactics. In fact, the fossil fuel industry learned their tactics from the tobacco industry. They learned how the tobacco industry in the 1950s, when faced with the inarguable evidence that their product was killing people, decided to do the wrong thing and confuse people about how harmful their product was. Similarly, in the late 80s, when the fossil fuel industry faced inarguable evidence that their product, when burned, was warming up our atmosphere, they decided to confuse people about how harmful CO2 emissions are for the atmosphere, so they could keep making money. So you have two industries that are kind of joined at the hip. And again, as I use this chart here, I can't draw with this program, so I can just use my arrow. We'll be kind of looking at the early part in the first essay, and we'll be looking at how the tobacco and fossil fuel industry shared the same strategies. And we'll dig right in. So I always will start a week with a short list that'll give you an idea of how much time, roughly 6 to 7 hours. That's a lot, I know, but keep in mind, if this were a normal class, you would be showing up 3 hours a week just in class time. And as a double class, that is taking 8 weeks instead of 16, we'd be showing up 6 hours a week just in class time. So keep in mind, if you have 6 to 7 hours of homework, you're pretty much showing up for class, all right? A very active class. Some weeks we'll have a little bit more. So I just want to let you know, I'll try to alert you to how much time the week's assignments will take. I list them Monday, Thursday, Friday, and how much time they take. Monday will be introductions. Thursday will be a response to Merchants of Doubt introduction and a short editorial by Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. And Friday, which will take 3 or more hours, will be a quiz on the movie, The Merchants of Doubt. That's what the week's about. I'll show you the assignments briefly as we go into the week. And keep in mind, what you're doing is you're building kind of a database of, or a memory bank of, strategies of deception used by the fossil fuel industry and used by the tobacco industry. And this is also a class in argument, in persuasion. And so we'll look at the argumentative and logical tactics they use to convince people that their products weren't harmful. So it all fits in with critical thinking. And I think it's actually a really cool subject, too. Most people come away from the class glad to be informed about this big disinformation strategy. So let me follow through here. The first day, you're going to have an introduction. I often have, but not always. Here I've got a good example of an excellent posting, and an excellent response, and a good explanation, and a voice thread to boot, if you want a little bit more explanation. That's for Monday. That's your check-in. I put the movie here as kind of a warning here, even though it's not due until Friday, but I want you to keep it on your radar because the movie will take the most time this week. And it will be a scene-by-scene analysis. You're going to build a vocabulary of ideas and keep in mind that you can use the movie in your first essay. We will focus mostly on the book. However, you can use the movie to support the ideas from the book. I emphasize the book because critical reading is such an essential skill. But anyway, I'm saying check out the movie. You're going to need to do it by Friday. It'll take 3 hours. And then for Thursday, I have a short editorial by Senator Whitehouse, who's a very, very strong environmental advocate. And he suggests that the fossil fuel industry may very well be using what's called the tobacco strategy. And that, incidentally, is the heart of our first paper. And so what I want you to do is read the introduction of Merchants of Doubt. It's only about 8 pages, but read it carefully. Find 3 of the tobacco strategies listed in Sheldon Whitehouse's article, and make sure you post quotes. So you can identify the strategy and post the quotes and what information is needed for those quotes to make sense that will back up that strategy. And again, everything you use out of the book can be used in your essay 1. So what you're doing is not only understanding how the tobacco strategy intersected the fossil fuel industry in the introduction, but you're also going to understand the kind of overlap of not only the strategies, but even some of the key players who defended tobacco came back online, as it were, to defend the fossil fuel industry. So it's really good background. And again, you're looking for strategies. That's the topic of your first essay. And you're getting some good material from reading the introduction. And again, it all points to the essay. Is you're going to write essays which state clear and arguable thesis supported by logical argumentation and evidence. Well, guess what? You're getting your evidence here, and you are criticizing ideas from nonfiction works. All of these things fit with the class student learning outcomes. And then finally, we've got a couple of links for the Merchants of Doubt. One has closed captions if this helps you. Another one doesn't. They're both good versions, same movie. And then I have a list of all of these questions, there are 20 of them. You're going to want to answer them as you watch the movie. And you can see I identify the time pretty close, within a few seconds. I have the questions that will really bring you into the thematic focus that's going to be a part of the class, basically the big disinformation strategy. Some of them are kind of easy. Some of them might take you a couple of passes at a given 2 or 10 minute scene to really get a strong answer. So you probably want to read the questions before you watch the scene, get your answer, maybe scroll back and watch it again, and write your answers down, because when you have the movie quiz on Friday, you'll only be given 10 minutes to answer 5 randomly chosen questions from these 20. You won't have time to watch the movie, but you will have time in those 10 minutes to cut and paste your answers. So find a way to write your answers as you watch the movie. And I'm doing this for a couple of reasons. It gives you great background. It's totally on point for what we're going to be doing all semester. It's like an instant great lecture with really super production values to get you grounded in the topic. And also, as you know, as I know, as we all know, if you just kind of watch a movie, you're going to miss a lot. But if you watch a movie, digging into each scene with targeted questions, you'll really get to the heart of it. So anyway, that's to set you up for the movie, the questions, and then at the end of the week, you have the quiz. You're given 10 minutes to answer 5 randomly chosen questions, and then you're done with week 1. And it's a lot of work. And so I'll review what we did, keep an idea of what you want to keep from week 1, and then look ahead to week 2 in a real quick way to let you know that we're going to have 8 or 10 hours or more from the text on week 2. And the reason I'll post that by Friday, the end of a given week, how much time the next week is going to take, is that you'll then have time to kind of maybe borrow from the weekend if you need to get 2 or 3 hours of reading done. You don't want to goof up your whole weekend, but at least you can get a jump on it. Sometimes that'll help. And kind of a review of what we're doing here is getting a lot of good material for our first essay, getting grounded in our topic, and keep in mind your essays are really the bulk of your grades, so the stronger you are with your ideas from week 1 all the way through, not only will that make your essays easier, it'll make them more focused, on target, and much more robust. So everything you do, there's no busy work, is getting ready for your first essay, which is a big part of your grade. I hope this helps you get started for this week.